Do you want to find your purpose? Do you have a drive that like understanding the meaning and the purpose and the calling on your life? Like, do you have a drive to discover that? So I did. I do. And I know that for many of my clients, well, many of my friends, most of my friends, we all have this drive to discover our purpose. We put so much pressure on what our purpose is. And I talked yesterday about the fact that our pain is not our purpose. But then I got the questions, well, how do we find our purpose, Tammy? And I was thinking about this question. I was like, it boils down to three things. That's it. We put such a pressure, excuse me, sorry about that. But it's such a pressure on and such a emphasis, and we make the purpose such a big concept that well, we don't sit down and discover it because it's like, well, I don't want to do it wrong. It's such a big feat. There's so many things we have to take into consideration. We have to rehash all the things we've been through. I don't know. I'm numb. There's so many things that my purpose can be because I'm so multifaceted. I have so many desires. And so I want to break it down for you because our purpose, when we do need to know our purpose, we need to know our calling, the meaning behind our life. And I think we're wired that way. Like we're wired for a deeper, we're wired for heaven. We're wired for eternity, and purpose and legacy and meaning and calling all focus on that as well. It's all giving us highlights to what that could be. And so I just wanted to come on here and just do a short video because when we overcomplicate things, then we don't actually discover it. We don't pursue it. And so I do think that you pursue it. I think it's a lifelong ambition. I think that we're constantly changing and evolving, but our purpose is less complicated than we make it seem. And when I started to understand this, I got to see that it's a big deal. Let's not stop. God created us in his image. He created us on purpose for a purpose to, in the words of one of my clients, to fill up heaven, make heaven crowded. But this elusive concept, when we don't define things and we make such a big deal of it, we can't actually reach it. So let's break it down really quickly and talk about how we can figure out what our purpose is. So understand these three things, and that's it. Three things. It's what drives us, what stops us, and what do you want your life to look like? Now, let me go a little bit deeper into that. What drives you? What motivates you? What is the why behind the why? We think of our purpose as a thing that we do, and it's really the impact, the legacy, the meaning behind what we do. Work is part of life. Our life and our work doesn't have to be. I'm reading this great book. Oh my goodness. It just came out, but it's like the sacred work of the sacred. Anyway, it's a really good book, and it's in the other room, so I can't even tell you. The Sacred Calling of Work by Jordan Raynor. Anyway, I'll put it in the comments because it just came out, and it's talking about how all of our work is sacred work. So all of our work is because we bring heaven with us. So no matter what you do, whether you are working in ministry or you're taking care of children or you're painting houses or whatever you do, it is sacred work. It is work because we're supposed to work for the Lord. So what we do is our work, but our purpose goes deeper than that. And so what drives you, what gets you up in the morning, what lens do you see the world through? What outcome are you trying to reach? So what drives you? What stops you? goes beyond fears, because a lot of the fears of like fear of heights, fear of public speaking, and fear of like these go to the deep rooted, like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to lead people astray. I don't want to be seen as unsuccessful. I want people to, I don't want people to be mad at me. Like there's a deeper core, what's stopping you from pursuing, from getting, like identifying the purpose. So when you look at that, what drives you, what's stopping you, and then what do you want your life to look like? I think this is a very important question, because again, what I'm envisioning for my life now is not the same as I envisioned in 10 years ago. 12 years ago, today, 12 years ago from now, like I had no idea what my life was going to look like. My husband was still alive. My kids were tiny. I was looking at what could I do for work? Like what? And I was looking at going back to, I was looking at being a college professor. Like I knew that teaching, and that's what drives me, is that teaching, that helping. And then what stopped me is I don't want to get it wrong. I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And when I look at what I want my life to look like now, it looks different. But this helps you to see your purpose, because do you see yourself, like what do you see yourself doing? Because that also, I mean, if you don't see yourself on a stage, your purpose isn't going to be on a stage. Now, this is one that you have to get curious and you have to get really honest with yourself. Is that stopping you? Is that something that you're scared of, but you secretly see yourself on a stage, or you know deep in your knower that that's something that you need to do? Or if you don't like writing, then chances are you're not going to be called to write a book. But if it's something that's on your heart and you're like, okay, like I have this secret dream of being on the bestsellers list. Well, that's an insight to what your purpose is. So you have to get honest with yourself. Like a lot of times we don't acknowledge the things that like are deep in our knower and deep in our heart, the things that kind of scare us. Your purpose is going to scare you a little bit, because it does matter so much to you, because we have this need to do great things that last. Our work is made to last, even if it's something as simple as painting a house. Painting a house is, though that house may need to be painted again, but you're making something beautiful. You're creating, and that's ultimately, that's a whole nother conversation. But when we're looking at our purpose, I really want you to just get clear on these three things, and it will start to point to what your purpose is, what your calling is, what the meaning behind your life is. Because friend, you do have a purpose. You have a important calling. There is meaning to your life. I talked about yesterday how your pain is not your purpose. It may highlight it, it may shape it, but your story started long before your pain. You don't have to stay in that cycle of just thinking that that's what your life is, that you need to stay in that, in those circumstances, in that trial, in that trauma. You were much more before that. And I know in deep in my knower that will be used for good, but it doesn't have to look like you think it looks. You don't have to sit there and talk about your pain or relive that. You get to look at what you want your life to look like. And that's why it's important that we sit and we ask ourselves these questions. Because if we just focus on the pain we've been through, we're missing out on all of the story and all of the elements, what prepared you for that in the first place, on all the character traits and how God wired you and why you went through that a little bit different than the person next to you. So if you're ready to find your purpose, if you want to dive into these three questions, I can guide you through them. This is something that I do with my clients. If you haven't met me, my name is Tammy. I'm an executive life coach. I help women and some men, but I help people find their purpose, find their identity, find what they're put here on earth to do. And it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. Like there's highlights all around you. The stories you've been through, the strengths and talents and your gifts all point to it. Your core motivations, your core desires, your core fears, your core avoidances, all of these point to what you're called to do. And so with that, friend, I'm super excited to get to know you. Leave a comment, drop deeper. If you want to talk about your purpose, if you know your purpose, like share it. I want to hear what your purpose is. And if you want to know more about it, then drop deeper in and let's chat. All right. With that, choose joy until joy chooses you. And I'll see you soon. Bye.